Sometimes the world laughs at those who refuse to give up, but history remembers only those who keep moving forward. Deep in the mist-covered hills of Karnataka, where endless rows of coffee plants stretched across the mountains, there stood a small plantation that everyone believed was cursed. Its owner was Ranga, a humble coffee farmer. For nearly 30 years, he had cared for those coffee trees like his own children. Every morning before sunrise, while the rest of the village was still asleep, Ranga would walk through the plantation, gently touching every plant, hoping this year would finally bring a good harvest. But year after year, disappointment arrived before success. Some years, heavy rains destroyed the flowers. Other years, disease spread through the plantation. When the weather was perfect, market prices collapsed. Every season brought a new reason to lose hope. Slowly, debts began to grow. The small savings he had built over decades disappeared. One by one, he mortgaged his land just to survive. Yet, every morning, he still smiled at his coffee trees, because deep inside, he believed that someday they would reward his faith. Back in his small mud house, life was becoming more difficult. His wife, Lakshmi, silently worried every day. She skipped meals so the children could eat. She carefully stitched old clothes instead of buying new ones. She never complained, but the fear in her eyes grew with every passing season. Their son, Ravi, had already lost hope. "Father," he said one evening, "how much longer will we suffer for this land? Everyone else has left farming. Sell the plantation. Let's move to the city." Ranga remained silent. He looked through the window at the coffee trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. "They have never betrayed me," he finally replied. "They are only waiting for the right season." Ravi shook his head. "Dreams cannot feed a family." The next morning, Ranga walked to the village bank. He carried a worn folder containing years of documents. He wasn't asking for luxury. He only wanted one final loan to save the plantation. The bank manager slowly examined the papers. Then he looked up and said, "Mr. Ranga, your repayment history is poor. Your plantation hasn't made a profit in years. I'm sorry. We cannot approve another loan." Those words echoed through the silent office. Ranga folded the papers carefully. He thanked the manager politely and walked home alone. Outside, rain began to fall. Each step felt heavier than the last. Back in the village, whispers spread quickly. "Poor Ranga. That plantation is cursed. He should have sold it years ago." Even close friends stopped believing in him, but every evening, Ranga still watered the young coffee plants, not because he knew success was coming, but because giving up had never become part of his character. Then, one quiet afternoon, something unexpected happened. An elderly traveler entered the village. His white beard flowed in the wind. His walking stick carried the marks of thousands of miles. He wasn't looking for money. He wasn't selling anything. He simply asked, "May I rest near your plantation for a while?" Ranga welcomed him with kindness. As they walked through the coffee fields together, the old traveler suddenly stopped. He bent down, picked up a handful of soil, touched the leaves, smelled the coffee cherries, and smiled. For the first time in years, someone looked at the plantation, not with pity, but with curiosity. The old man turned toward Ranga. "My friend, there's nothing wrong with your coffee." Ranga looked surprised. "What do you mean?" The old traveler gently held a coffee branch. "The problem isn't your trees. It's the way you've been growing them." He paused for a moment, then quietly added, "If you're willing to trust an old stranger, I can show you something that may change everything." Ranga stood frozen. Was this another false hope? Or was destiny finally knocking on his door? Ranga stood silently, staring at the old traveler. For a moment, he didn't know whether to believe him or not. After years of failure, hope had become a dangerous emotion. The old traveler smiled gently. He knelt beside one of the coffee plants and pointed toward its roots. "These trees are healthy," he said, "but they're tired." Ranga looked confused. The old man continued, "For years you've been giving them water and fertilizer, but you've forgotten to feed the soil." He explained how healthy soil creates healthy plants. He taught Ranga to make natural compost from dried leaves, cow dung, and coffee pulp instead of relying only on expensive chemical fertilizers. He also showed him how to prune weak branches so the stronger ones could grow. Before leaving, the traveler placed his hand on Ranga's shoulder. "My friend, nature always rewards those who care for it with patience." Then he quietly walked away. Ranga never even learned the old man's name. The very next morning, before sunrise, Ranga began working. He collected dry leaves from the forest. He dug compost pits. He carefully removed diseased branches. He planted shade trees to protect the coffee plants from harsh sunlight. Every single day, he worked harder than ever before. But the village didn't understand. As they passed his plantation, people laughed. "There goes Ranga, still dreaming." Another farmer mocked him. "Look at him, playing with leaves instead of growing coffee." Even Ravi, his own son, struggled to believe. "Father, what if this doesn't work?" Ranga smiled. "If I quit today, I'll never know." Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Slowly, something extraordinary began to happen. The leaves became greener. The flowers appeared stronger. The coffee cherries looked brighter than ever before. Lakshmi noticed the difference first. One evening she walked through the plantation with tears in her eyes. "It's beautiful," she whispered. For the first time in many years, hope returned to their home. Then, the harvest season arrived. The entire family worked together from sunrise until sunset. Every ripe coffee cherry was picked by hand. Every bean was carefully cleaned, dried, and sorted. Ranga refused to rush the process. He remembered every word the traveler had spoken. When the harvest was complete, a local coffee cooperative selected a few farmers to participate in an international coffee quality competition. Nobody expected Ranga's coffee to qualify, not even Ranga himself. Weeks passed. Then, one quiet afternoon, a white vehicle stopped outside his small farmhouse. Several officials stepped out carrying documents. The entire village gathered to watch. One official smiled and extended his hand. "Mr. Ranga, congratulations. Your coffee has been awarded the highest quality rating in this year's International Specialty Coffee Competition." For a moment, time stood still. Ranga couldn't speak. Lakshmi covered her mouth with trembling hands. Ravi stared in disbelief. The villagers who had once laughed now stood in complete silence. Within months, buyers from different countries began visiting the plantation. They were willing to pay several times the normal market price. The debts that had haunted Ranga for years were finally cleared. His children no longer spoke about selling the land. Instead, they proudly chose to work beside their father. The small farmhouse was repaired, the plantation flourished, and the village that once called it cursed now called it the most successful coffee farm in the region. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the western Ghats, Ranga stood quietly among his coffee trees. The cool breeze carried the familiar aroma of fresh coffee blossoms. He looked toward the mountains and smiled, not because he had become rich, but because he had kept a promise to himself. He had never stopped believing. Sometimes, success doesn't come because we're the smartest. Sometimes, it comes because we're the only ones who refuse to quit. Remember this. People may laugh at your dreams today. They may tell you to give up. They may say your efforts are pointless, but every great harvest begins with a season when nothing seems to grow. Be patient. Keep learning, keep improving, and most importantly, keep believing in the work you're doing. Because one day, the same people who doubted you may stand in line to celebrate your success. Never give up. Your harvest is closer than you think.
Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more daily motivational videos.